Good morning. So today we'll be starting with receptor tyrosine kinases. So you can understand that there are a lot of extracellular signaling proteins which are now ligands. We will use the word ligand, which invariably binds to the receptor, hence the name receptor. So these receptors are present on the surface of the plasma membrane, and the ligand molecules binds to these receptors, and in the process the receptors are activated. Some very important example of receptor tyrosine kinases, as we go through, we will again see, but let me speak it out here, is the epidermal growth factor, the platelet derived growth factor, basically the growth factors, the fibroblast growth factor, hepatocyte growth factor, insulin-like growth factor, vascular endothelial growth factor. Then we have in the immune system, this is very important, the macrophage colony stimulating factor, the neutrophins, and the nerve growth factor. There are about around 60 genes that encode for the human receptor tyrosine kinases, and these receptors can be classified into more than 16 structural subfamilies, each dedicated to its complementary family of proteins. Now, as this picture tells us, the moment there is a signaling protein binding to the ligand on the outside of the cell, the intracellular, as you can see, tyrosine kinase domain are phosphorylated on the tyrosine residues. Okay, and thus the receptors are activated, and further the phosphorylated receptors now interact with other protein kinases. You can see it is interacting with other protein kinases, and these kinases then pass the signal. In this case, you can see the signal is being passed to one such important signal transducer, the RAS protein. Once the signal is passed to the RAS protein, the RAS in its inactive form, as you can see, is bound to GDP. The moment it is active, it exchanges a GTP for a GDP and it becomes activated. So this is a very simplified scheme of how receptor tyrosine kinases function. If we look into the mode of action of receptor tyrosine kinases, in this particular slide, you can see there are receptors with intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity. That is, these receptors have tyrosine kinase activity in their cytoplasmic domain. So they are themselves armed with certain tyrosine residues which are automatically phosphorylated when the receptor is activated. This is a list of such receptors which have the intrinsic tyrosine kinase phosphorylation activity. Now, you people must have heard about, among this family which I have just now highlighted, two receptors are important and you might have heard about them, the platelet derived growth factor. I'm talking about the platelet derived growth factor because next, after signaling, we'll be starting with cell cycle. And when you study cell cycle, you will understand the importance of the platelet derived growth factor. Another important signaling receptor is the fibroblast growth factor. This is also important. So these are the receptors that have intrinsic tyrosine kinase domain. That is, the receptor itself is armed with the tyrosine kinase activities. Coming to the other side, receptor associated with tyrosine kinases. As you can see, as the receptor ligand activation is completed, proteins come and associate with the receptor. So this is known as associated tyrosine kinase domain. So you see the difference in the two pictures. In the first one, the receptors are armed with the tyrosine kinase domains. But in this case, as we can see, that proteins are coming who are having a tyrosine kinase domains who are becoming associated with the receptors to transduce the signal further on. So when we are now thorough with the two categories of receptor tyrosine kinase activities, one the intrinsic and one we just now said that certain receptor tyrosine kinases have associated tyrosine kinase domain. And if you look into the basic function of the two category of receptors, when you're talking about intrinsic, you see the function is metabolism, wound healing, embryogenesis, and cancer. So these receptors play a role in there. When we are talking about the receptors associated with tyrosine kinase, you see the function is immune surveillance. That is, the immune system is checking the body, tissue formation, tissue maintenance. And these are some of the associated receptor tyrosine kinases. In fact, when we will be doing two pathways, while we're doing the pathways of RTK today, you will see the presence of the SRC family. And next day, when we will be doing the cytokine receptors, you will see the Janus kinase family. So these are receptor associated tyrosine kinase domain. They are not a part of the receptor. These are proteins that can identify tyrosine residues on the receptor and then can come and associate with the receptor, and they in turn get activated by phosphorylation on their tyrosine residues. So I just described while in the start of the class about the RTKs, and you can see there are two ways in which the receptor tyrosine kinase activation can be done. One way has been shown here. You can see that the receptor is monomer. It is present as a single unit in the plasma membrane. And as you can see, there is a defined tyrosine kinase domain in the intracellular part. So these receptors are intrinsic tyrosine kinase receptors. The moment a ligand comes and binds, it might be a growth factor, the ligand initiates the movement of the receptors towards each other, and you can see the receptor dimerization is occurring. The moment receptors dimerize, they come together to form partners, what happens? The intracellular part of the receptors move near to each other. As the intracellular part of the receptors move near each other, what happens? This tyrosine kinase domain phosphorylates the tyrosine residues on the other receptor, and these tyrosine kinase domain phosphorylates the tyrosine residues on the first receptor. So they just crosstalk and they become activated by cross phosphorylation on multiple tyrosines. This phenomena is often referred to as trans-autophosphorylation. Understand the terminology. Auto means you are phosphorylating your own self. Trans means I am not being able to phosphorylate. Another receptor in trans position is phosphorylating me. So if this is partner 1 and this is partner 2, partner 1 is phosphorylating partner 2, hence trans. And partner 2 is phosphorylating partner 1. But since they are a pair of a single functional receptor complex, hence they both are auto. They form a pair of a receptor complex. Hence it is self-phosphorylation, but the subunits are phosphorylating each other. Hence trans-phosphorylation. So it's trans-autophosphorylation even that is occurring here. That is what we saw here. Now, as I was talking about the subfamilies of RTKs, if you look into the different receptor structures of the subfamily, this is a broad schematic diagram showing you the different receptor structures of the subfamilies, and you can see that all these receptors, look at the red color, invariably have these tyrosine kinase domain. Invariably, all the receptors have this red color block at the intracellular region side. So at the intracellular side, we are seeing this red color block. This is the tyrosine kinase domain. In some cases, you can see the two red color blocks have been separated by a small green color segment, which is known as the kinase insert domain. So this is the classical schematic picture of all the members that belong to the subfamilies of receptor tyrosine kinases. They have this intrinsic tyrosine kinase domain, and in some, the tyrosine kinase domain is separated by a very small insert of kinase insert region. As I was saying, this is a table of the different signaling proteins, the different receptors that follow, that act via the RTK pathway. In course of time, when you will be studying hormone, you'll be studying insulin. When you'll be studying cell cycle, you'll be studying the fibroblast growth factors. You will be studying these growth factors in immune system, PDGF and MCSF. So these receptors are diverse. These receptors play a wide functional role in various physiological processes of our body. So I'm not getting into these particular receptors one by one. And now talking about that RTK dimerization. In one of the initial slides, I explained what happens. This is an inactive receptor tyrosine kinase. This inactive receptor tyrosine kinase is there as a monomer in the plasma membrane. The moment signaling molecule or the ligand starts moving towards the receptor starts moving towards each other. And as the receptor starts moving towards each other, so this phenomena is known as dimerization. So the receptors, the monomers join to form a dimer. And since the dimers have come close to each other, that is, they are in close proximity to each other. This is a phenomena. Once you're close, these are two biomolecules. The biomolecules have become very close to each other. Now, this closeness of the dimer results in the trans-autophosphorylation of the kinase domains on the two receptors. So, in the close proximity condition in the dimers, the two kinase domains phosphorylate each other, resulting in trans-autophosphorylation. Thus, we are having an activated receptor. Once this trans-autophosphorylation has occurred, as you can see, certain more tyrosine residues are being phosphorylated. See, the first one is the trans-autophosphorylation. So this trans-autophosphorylation is promoting the initial activation of the receptor. This activation is followed by phosphorylation of tyrosines in other parts of the receptor. Now, since we are having some tyrosine phosphorylation in other parts of the receptor, these sites act as docking sites for intracellular signaling protein. So you can see that a number of signaling proteins, 1, 2, 3, they are now being attracted to these sites and they dock on that sites. If you understand the word dock, the word dock is associated with harbor. Whenever there is a harbor, a ship can come and dock on the harbor, something like that. So whenever there is a trans-autophosphorylation of the receptor and there are additional tyrosine residues that are being phosphorylated on the intracellular part of the receptor, you can see that additional proteins are now docking on the phosphorylated sites of the receptor, and they themselves are getting activated on their tyrosine residues. So their tyrosine residues are also being phosphorylated. As a result of which, we are now seeing multiple signaling cascades being operated from this single ligand receptor interaction. So we are seeing an amplification of the signaling occurring with a single ligand receptor binding occurring. So this was what I was talking about, that there are two first phosphorylation is the phosphorylation of tyrosine within the kinase domains, which increases the kinase activity of the enzyme. The second phosphorylation of the tyrosine residues occur outside the catalytic domain, which creates specific binding sites for additional proteins that transmit intracellular downstream signals. We'll come to the SRC homology domain later on. So the moment these enzymes are docked, or moment these proteins are docked on the phosphotyrosines, many of these proteins are enzymes. So they can be phospholipase C gamma, which functions by activating the inositol phospholipid signaling pathway. Some of the enzymes that dock on these receptors is the cytoplasmic tyrosine kinase, SRC. SRC is a family of receptor kinases, is a family of kinase protein. They are said, why are they called SRC? Because it has been seen that they have a definite structural part in their conformation, which is known as the SH2 or SRC homology domain. So named because the sequence of an SH2 domain is similar to that of a domain in the SARC. That is how you pronounce SRC, SARC. So the SH2, the sequence of, as I said, so it's so named because the sequence of an SH2 domain is similar to that of a domain in the SRC or SARC, another tyrosine kinase. So SRC is basically a tyrosine kinase for simplification, and it has another domain known as SH2 domain, and this SH2 domain helps in docking of a lot of tyrosine kinases belonging to the SRC subfamily to these receptors. So the proteins that interact might be the enzymes, PLC gamma, might be the SRC tyrosine kinases, or it might be another category of family of the tyrosine kinases, the phosphoinositide 3 kinase, PR3 kinases. Keep it in mind that whenever some protein is docking or some enzyme is docking here, for example, when we are having the docking of SRC tyrosine kinases, it phosphorylates signaling proteins on tyrosine residues. It goes on phosphorylating further signaling molecules on tyrosine residues. When we have docking of a PI3 phosphoinositide kinase on these receptors, there's a difference. You see, they phosphorylate mainly lipids rather than proteins. And these phosphorylated lipids now act as docking sites to attract various signal proteins to the plasma membrane. So this is how the signal that is perceived by the receptor via the ligand is amplified via its intracellular segment portions through a lot of signal transducers who in turn relay the signals to the signaling proteins downstream. For receptor tyrosine kinases, we call this pathway the RTK pathway because it starts with the trans autophosphorylation of the tyrosine kinases, and in most cases the members of this subfamily have tyrosine residues which are actually phosphorylated, and that is how the proteins are activated. Okay, so this is another beautiful picture showing you two basic mechanisms of activation of the receptor tyrosine kinases. One is, as you can see, the ligand mediated dimerization, and the other is the receptor mediated dimerization. In the ligand mediated dimerization, as you can see, the signaling molecule is moving towards the plasma membrane. As the signaling molecule is moving towards the plasma membrane, it induces the monomers, the receptor monomers, to come in close proximity to each other and to bind with the ligand. So ligand-induced dimerization has occurred, resulting in trans-autophosphorylation of the receptors, followed by further binding of the associated signaling molecules. On the right side, what we are seeing is the receptor-mediated dimerization. In case of receptor-mediated dimerization, as you can see, this is the ligand. The ligand is now binding with the receptors. The receptors are inactive. So initially, the ligand is binding with the receptors. The ligand binding with the receptors initiate a conformational change in the receptor, as a result of which the receptors can now dimerize. Prior to that, the receptors were monomers. They could not dimerize. They initially bind to the ligand as monomers, and this ligand binding to the receptor induces a conformational change in them, as a result of which they dimerize. And after dimerization, we are seeing trans-autophosphorylation, and the receptors are activated, and then the cascade moves downstream with the association of further signaling molecules. This is a beautiful example of one receptor, specific category of our receptor tyrosine kinase, the epidermal growth factor. So you can see this is the epidermal growth factor. It has an extracellular part, it has a transmembrane part, and it has an intracellular tail. And you can see the tyrosine residues on the intracellular tail. Now, as the epidermal growth factor receptor binds with the epidermal growth factor binds with this receptor, you can see this is ligand mediated dimerization. Here, what we are seeing is that ligand is not this is not ligand mediated dimerization. This is receptor mediated dimerization. We are seeing that the ligand are binding as monomers, and upon ligand binding, the receptors there's a conformational change and the receptors dimerize. And once the receptor dimerize, you can see that trans-autophosphorylation of the tyrosine residues on the receptors are activated. So trans-autophosphorylation is done, and the receptor creates binding sites for proteins that contain the SRC homology domain. I talked about the SRC. So now there is this docking sites have been generated, and let's look into it. So these are some more proteins. This is the epidermal growth factor 1 binding. You see at the second part, they are going autophosphorylation. And once autophosphorylation is happening, it is recruiting proteins with the SH2 domain, in this case, the GRB2 and SOS. And these proteins then are further activated, and they activate the RAS protein. The RAS then exchanges a GTP for GDP. The RAS is activated, and once RAS is activated, the signaling cascade moves downstream, activating the transcription of the response gene. One thing just to mention here, that we saw the example of the RAS signaling. Now, RAS is a very important intracellular signaling molecule. A mutation in RAS is often seen in cases of patients suffering from bladder carcinoma. So RAS in the cell is a very important intracellular signaling molecule. Keep in mind, because when we will be doing about the topic cancer, we will see that how mutant RAS in patients having bladder carcinoma, mutant RAS actually malfunctions, causing an aberrant cancerous condition. So this is a simple signaling pathway that is occurring through the receptor tyrosine kinase, as exemplified by the epidermal growth factor. So once more, inactive receptor signaling molecule, tyrosines are phosphorylated activated receptor, and you can see the proteins are docking, and they can interact by the two domains by which the protein interacts with these phosphotyrosines. One I said is the serine homology domain or the SH2 domain, while some proteins have the another kind of domain which is known as the phosphotyrosine binding domain. So it's either via the SH2 domain or via the PTB domain, the intracellular signaling molecules interacts with these receptors. Now coming to a more gross structure of another receptor. This is the platelet derived growth factor, and the cytosolic part of the receptor has been shown. If you remember, when I was talking about the receptor subfamilies, I told you that all these receptors have a tyrosine kinase domain. And there are some receptors who have a kinase insert domain. You can see the kinase domain in this case is split and there is a small insert region. So when we are now moving on to seeing the structural facets of this receptor, we are seeing that this is the tyrosine kinase domain, which is split. And in between, there are three important tyrosine residues, which are phosphorylated. Now you see the message that is perceived when the tyrosine residues are phosphorylated. If it is a phosphorylation of the 740th and the 731st tyrosine residue of the polypeptide, so if this is phosphorylated, the message is the activation of the PI3 kinase. Just we talked about the PI3 kinase. The PI3 kinase is the phosphoinositide kinase, which phosphorylates mainly lipids rather than proteins. If the 771 domain tyrosine residue is phosphorylated, you can see it's a GTPase activating protein. And if this tyrosine is phosphorylated, you can see it is the activation of phospholipase C gamma. So depending on which tyrosine residues are phosphorylated, the message is received by three different sets of signaling pathways and three different sets of signaling molecules. So this is important as to which tyrosine residue outside the catalytic domain is phosphorylated for these receptors, and accordingly that particular signaling pathway starts. This is a picture showing you the structure of a very diagrammatic representation of SH2 domain. It's just like a plug. So SH2 domain, remember it's a part of a polypeptide. So there is an amino terminal and a carboxy terminal. And there are two binding sites in this SH2 domain, which is a part of a protein. One binding site is that it can bind with the phosphotyrosine. Just now we saw, so it can bind with this. No, sorry, it can bind with the, just a second. So it can bind with the phosphotyrosines. There are two plugs, as you can see. So one side they can bind with the phosphotyrosine binding site, and the other is the binding site for amino acid side chain. So it looks like a compact plug which can be inserted anywhere in a protein without disturbing the protein's folding or function. And whenever an SH2 domain docks on a phosphotyrosine, remember it also binds to the amino acid side chain. So what amino acid is present in the side chain, that is also important. So which amino acid is present in the side chain is also important, because different SH2 domain recognize phosphotyrosines in the context of different flanking amino acid sequences. So based on the different amino acid sequences observed, the different flanking sequences observed, accordingly the SH2 domain recognizes the phosphotyrosines. And these are the different intracellular signaling pathways that are operative. So you can see 5 parallel signaling pathways activated by RTK. Let's restrict ourselves to RTK. It can activate the phospholipase C pathway. It can activate the GRB2 pathway, as we saw via the epidermal growth factor, where it activates RAS, and it can activate the phosphoinositide 3 kinase pathway. So the downstream signaling molecule here is AKT kinase. When the RAS is activated, the downstream signaling pathway is MAP kinase. When phospholipase C is activated, the downstream signaling pathway is PKC. Now, we're not getting into details of the signaling pathway because the basics of RTK is required. So we restrict here ourselves to the fact that these are the multiple signaling pathways a receptor tyrosine kinase can activate. And when we talk about the receptor tyrosine kinases, and we will also be doing the genus kinases, see, hormones usually bind to receptor tyrosine kinases, can activate the GRB2, can activate PLC, can activate PI3. Next, we will be studying the cytokine, and the cytokine receptors usually operate through the JAK-STAT pathway. So they operate via this STAT pathway. And we'll be studying that. So today we saw the receptor tyrosine kinases and the multiple pathways it uses for inducing signaling pathways or signaling processes within an eukaryotic cell. In most cases, whatever the pathway is, remember the output is transcriptional activation or repression. If it is via the RAS pathway, if it is via just the phospholipase C pathway where increase of cytosolic calcium has occurred, it is again transcriptional activation or repression or modification of other cellular proteins. And if it moves through the PI3 kinase pathway, it is again transcriptional activation or repression or modification of other cellular proteins. So this was about the receptor tyrosine kinases.